Court bombshell. Freedom Convoy bank records set to be exposed. What are they hiding? There's a major story unfolding in Canada right now, one that could fundamentally change how people view government power, individual rights, and accountability. Since Mark Carney took office as Prime Minister after the snap federal election on April 28, 2025, the political landscape has shifted in ways many didn't expect. Carney's leadership style and policy choices have sparked intense debate, but beneath the surface, there's a legal battle that demands our close attention. While political theater continues, like Carney getting booed at the Alberta Stampede and Pierre Poilievre's witty jabs stealing the show, the real stakes lie in what's happening with the Freedom Convoy legal case and Canada's fiscal future. The spotlight is on Evan Blackman, a man whose bank accounts were frozen during the Freedom Convoy protests of 2022. This action came under the Emergencies Act, a controversial tool that the federal government invoked to manage what it called a national crisis. Blackman was arrested, charged with mischief and obstruction, but later acquitted in 2023. Yet, despite the acquittal, the Crown appealed and pushed for a retrial set for August 14, 2025. Recently, an Ontario judge ordered the RCMP and TD Bank to release documents related to why Blackman's accounts were frozen in the first place. This is a landmark development. Never before has there been such a direct legal challenge in Canada over the freezing of personal financial assets under the Emergencies Act. The potential revelations from these records could expose the government's inner workings during that tense period and possibly highlight abuses of power. It's important to remember just how heavy-handed the government's response was during those protests. The freezing of bank accounts wasn't some minor administrative action. It was a severe restriction on personal freedoms, cutting off access to funds for people who were merely exercising their right to protest or who may have had peripheral involvement. The courts have since ruled that the government's use of the Emergencies Act was unconstitutional in this context. This means those actions, including freezing accounts without proper legal justification, likely violated fundamental rights. The records soon to be unveiled could show the extent of these violations, how decisions were made, and whether anyone in the government or law enforcement acted outside the law. Many Canadians recall the raw images from the Freedom Convoy: horses charging into crowds, peaceful demonstrators facing overwhelming police force, and streets blocked off in the nation's capital. But few knew about the secretive tactics employed behind the scenes, like targeting financial accounts to dismantle the protests' funding. This wasn't just a response to a public disturbance. It was a calculated move to cut off resources and intimidate those involved. Now, with this court order, those hidden details might finally come to light, forcing us all to confront uncomfortable questions about government overreach and civil liberties. Mark Carney, who was a staunch defender of the Emergencies Act's invocation under Trudeau's government, finds himself in a tricky position. His past statements made clear his support for such strong measures to maintain order. Now, as Prime Minister, Carney's leadership is being tested by this case. Will he continue to defend these tactics despite their unconstitutional ruling? Or will the new evidence force a shift in stance? The political implications are enormous because this isn't just about one protest or one man's frozen bank account. It's about the balance of power between citizens and the state. While the legal drama unfolds, the government's fiscal policies are stirring up fresh controversy. Carney's plan to ramp up defense spending to an ambitious 5% of GDP has analysts warning Canadians to brace for tax increases. The focus is on consumption taxes like the Goods and Services Tax, GST, and a proposed Defense and Security Tax, DST. Currently, GST is 5%, but in some provinces, the total sales tax rate reaches 15%. The DST idea is pitched as a temporary measure to fund the military buildup transparently, but history warns us that temporary taxes rarely disappear once implemented. This looming tax hike is creating unease among taxpayers already feeling squeezed by inflation and rising living costs. Canada's debt and deficit situation adds urgency to this discussion. The government faces massive fiscal challenges and looks to taxation as an easy way to raise revenue. But critics argue that instead of piling more taxes on Canadians, the government should cut wasteful spending, reduce inefficiencies, and make hard choices about budget priorities. The political reality is often different. Tax hikes are sometimes seen as quicker fixes, even if they risk eroding public trust. This debate puts Carney's government under pressure to prove that it can balance national security needs with economic fairness. The implications of increasing consumption taxes reach beyond simple economics. Higher GST or DST rates hit low and middle-income Canadians hardest because these families spend a larger portion of their income on everyday goods and services. With economic uncertainty looming, raising taxes without addressing spending habits or improving service delivery risks widening inequality and fueling public frustration. For many Canadians, these developments raise questions about who truly bears the burden of government policy and whether the political leadership listens to everyday concerns. This entire situation, the legal fight over frozen bank accounts and the looming tax increases for defense, asks a fundamental question. How much power should the government have over its citizens? It challenges us to consider how to protect public order and national security without sacrificing the freedoms and rights Canadians expect. Transparency and respect for constitutional limits must be at the core of any government action. This is why Canadians need to stay informed and actively engage in these debates as they evolve. Public confidence in government institutions is fragile. When we see citizens like Evan Blackman facing severe restrictions without clear justification, or hear of tax increases without clear plans to cut waste, it's no surprise that trust erodes. Canadians want a government that safeguards their rights, manages their money responsibly, and stands accountable. The coming months, with Blackman's retrial and ongoing fiscal discussions, will be critical tests of this trust. As the August 14th trial date approaches, the release of these bank records could either justify the government's actions or expose troubling abuses. Simultaneously, the government's approach to funding its defense ambitions will reveal whether it prioritizes fiscal responsibility or opts for short-term fixes at taxpayers' expense. Both stories will shape public opinion and influence Canada's political trajectory under Carney's leadership. These issues matter deeply because they touch on the core values Canadians hold dear: justice, freedom, fairness, and accountability. This is a moment for citizens to be vigilant, informed, and vocal. Understanding the facts and demanding transparency will be crucial in shaping Canada's future.